Okay, day 102, very windy day here in Portland. The DynCorp harvest. Two big items of news. One, I'm going to meet with Oliver Stone's folks, I guess, an intermediary. She looks like Valerie Plame, the producer. So either I get shot in the parking lot or else this becomes a major motion picture. But anyway, the other news is Puelo from Haiti is trying to contact me. He's wanted in 4 countries. But before I get to those stories, I'm going to go with what I wanted to talk about, which is, when the CIA and the DynCorp were created, they kind of had this God complex. And you'll even see in movies where it's guns, opium, or drugs, and, well, back then it was orgies, but now it's organs. There's an old saying in the CIA, why did we overthrow the country if we weren't going to farm it? If we weren't going to use it. The same hunters have a thing, why did I kill it if I wasn't going to eat it? DynCorp is the eating of it's the cutting up of the kill and using all the parts, sort of like Spanish bullfighting. So that's kind of the ethic, and Wild Bill Donovan was the kind of the cowboy that kind of gave that spirit to these, kind of like a happy crew of pirates. But as it starts getting closer and closer to the reality, you kind of see that it's kind of ugly. It really gets into, infecting populations with bioweapons, viruses, and then selling the vaccines and profiting from that, like General Grange did. This sex and drug trafficking ends up in a lot of ruined lives where young girls go into prostitution, then they end up killing themselves with drug overdoses. That's just not a fun thing. And then the blood and organ harvesting and all the blood-related things like bone marrow and so forth. You end up, the profits are so big, you end up picking guys like me and throwing them in with the bad guys like the drug traffickers. We may as well throw a few journalists in because they're holding us up. They're standing in between us and overthrowing the country. So we got to get rid of them, and we may as well use the body parts. So that's a very Orwellian view of the world, but that's exactly why DynCorp was created. It was a black line budget, so you can't have CIA on all the planes, okay? You can't, like in Cuba. So, DynCorp would provide the planes, and people wouldn't know that, and so forth. Central America. This actually goes all the way back to General Grange in Vietnam, which was the Phoenix Project, which was there's political enemies as well as military enemies. And how do we go after the political enemies? And this guy from Yale, Brick Smith or Bricklayer or something, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he is just a genius. He's compartmentalized a whole system of destroying lives of political people. And I mean, deny them health, don't let their kids get into college, don't get them in any food programs. You go down the list, make sure they don't get any kind of public assistance, make sure they get all kinds of public guff, their IRS, their EPA, make sure their businesses are crushed through EPA regulation. Now, not in Vietnam, but I'm just saying they used all the government mechanisms possible, carrot and stick, to destroy who they thought were political enemies. The problem with that is the political or the fixers in the country started saying, well, Blumenthal, I don't really like him. He's, for whatever reason, I want his business. A lot of times was an economic reason. So they actually had quotas, and Grange was the guy doing the Phoenix program in Vietnam. They had quotas of how many they should kill, and it got up to 1,800 a month. And most of the people that were killed, you can read Doug Valentine's book about the Phoenix program, he wrote a 600-page book on it, are innocent people. Most of the people end up being innocent, and they always end up throwing more and more journalists in, and then less and less bad guys, So that's kind of why. So anyway, Puelo. We'll go to Puelo. If you don't remember Puelo, he's the kind of the fixer. He's wanted in 4 different countries for the sex trafficking. He sets up basically the sex traffic underground railroads, or brownstones I call them, but let's call them railroad operations, because we're doing entrapment. So I'll just say railroad. Well, the way you do that, these guys don't wake up one morning and go, hey, I think I'll run a brownstone operation or an underground railroad operation. No, they're contacted by guys like this. He's a political officer. These are political military officers that work for the State Department. Well, The State Department and the CIA are really the same thing. They were right next to each other for the longest time in Washington. They had a tunnel underneath. A lot of times the State Department people would go eat over at the CIA lunchroom for better lunchroom conversations, more fun stuff, the more spy stuff. I mean, they're the same thing. It's just the political side of the Department of Defense versus the military side of the Department of Defense. That's the difference. So I will get back to Monica Peterson, and everybody is saying, oh, could Monica Peterson still be alive? Is this just a fake death, to cover so she can reappear somewhere else? I don't think so. I don't think her family and friends would be too happy to hear that. So, like I said, these political military officers set up these underground railroads, and a lot of these kids are survivors of wars, and they've been brought up, and they move them back and forth between the United States and their home country, so they can speak perfect Arabic or perfect Spanish or perfect French, and then they use them. There's a cadre of people that come up through the university system, and then the Madeleine Albrights of the world pick those people who are the most promising. And so his wife is also Yana Lapidos from USAID is one of those. Everybody who comes up to the State Department is this culled talent from the pool of mainly war refugees. Now, if they're being sired or fathered by the CIA agents, you can argue about that later, but Barack Obama is a classic example. So when you have an operation, Petit Frere Sur, this is going to be a brownstone operation. This is an underground railroad operation, and what you're doing is getting an enemies list. You're getting an enemies list. Remember, the CIA does not care about the people of Haiti. The CIA wants to control three things. They want to control the military, they want to control the checkbook, the budget, they want to control the president because he sits over those two things. Okay, so I have my weapons, I have my migrations I can use, and I can use my brownstones. I'm going to get a whole list of political opponents, and I'm going to try to entrap all the political opponents of whoever I want to put in, and I'm going to have an operation where I sweep them all out. And a continuing operation all the time, and I'm using these kids as the bait. I'm going to guarantee you that that Petit Frere Soir is going to be Operation Underground for Haiti. Okay, in the United States, it's the same thing. The Phoenix operation, which was set up, what they do is basically set up a center in every state in Vietnam. Here in the U.S., it's DHS with fusion centers. And they get all the information, they come up with an enemies list, and then they figure out every possible way to get leverage on that person. Taking away his business, put EPA regulations on him, move the guy off the farm because of whatever, water rights. You name it, and this is a way here. The brownstone is a way of forcing the issue rather than those other things take longer. This is an immediate where you get all for asset seizure. This is all about asset seizure, and really a great analogy for the CIA is a virus, because a virus goes in and it uses the replicating mechanism of DNA of your cell to reproduce itself. So it's like it doesn't even use any energy. It uses the energy of the organization or the country to reproduce itself. So that's why the virus goes in and takes over the police departments. Once I compromise the chief of police or the head of the sheriff in whatever county that in Vietnam with the Phoenix program, I think it was every district, but in the U.S. it's going to be every county. They're going to compromise every sheriff and every police chief in a major city. And then they're going to compromise the people who work below them, and then it's going to come to the chief's attention about the other underlings, bad. I think he's going to say, "Oh, I'll just keep it under wraps." But now the police chief has leverage on all his lieutenants. That's how it works. It's a very hierarchically driven thing. So Tim Ballard is going to be your political officer in Denver. Actually, he's the political officer. He's going to be recruiting fixers all over the United States through these police departments. He's the guy who comes in with a camera thing and shows these people how to do it. So let's take Haiti. I want to create a political bond with the elite in the country. So in order to keep the country, you have the leaders and then you have the elite. You don't need to worry about the people. The elite need health services, so they're going to want to buy organs. They're going to want to buy hearts, and you are going to go in there and farm it that way. The reason why this hospital ship is going all around to these 11 different places isn't to provide health care to the poor. It's to provide health care to the elite. Now, CNN will have a cover story always about some poor person getting it, so that's what the impression is created in your mind. But it's health care for the elites. And what better way to supply the elites' hearts than to railroad them by entrapping them in a sex operation and then taking their hearts, having a heart removal. So, it's Ecuadorian hearts for Ecuador, it's Guatemalan hearts for Guatemala, and Belize hearts for Belize, that kind of thing. So we don't have to move the stuff around too often. Now, you do have a problem with the doctors, because a lot of times you don't have to train doctors. That's where we need to bring in the UAE doctors. And UAE is a concentration point. The Cleveland Clinic in UAE, in Dubai, is a concentration point for all Middle East doctors, for all Muslim doctors in the Muslim Brotherhood, to come, and they just need to be on the ship, meet them on the ship. Or they can do it in UAE. They could do the transplants in UAE for a war dead over there. But that's the play that's going on here. Oh, by the way, somebody said it's not 1,000 grams for a pound. That's for a kilo. It's 450 grams for a pound. Still, at $23,000 a gram for bone marrow, you didn't even have to worry about the organs. That in itself makes a person worth millions, a dead person worth millions. And the cells last for 17 days, which is amazing. You got to have your network. You got to have your network of people. So in the U.S., the operation is through Podesta. So he's the one doing the, going around to the elites and saying, hey, here's the elites all toasting. We got a new heart. And you need to have this is kind of like advertising. If you don't have these public rituals and cults, nobody's going to know you're in that business. So this is just the American version of what Pueblo's doing down in Haiti. And then you have your guys that are always on television saying, hey, Christopher and Dana Reeve died from old lung, and Tim Russert died from old heart. Get people thinking, well, what if I could get a heart? That's where you want the customer where you want the customer to be. And who's the man creating the new hearts, the supply of new hearts? It's David Petraeus. Then you have what they call a flashbang moment. Flashbang moment is when you can bring a whole bunch of people in, and helicopters can be going back and forth, and nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's confused. You have your sniper team protecting your team here for Dana Braverman to go in with these health professionals, and that's when you pull those hearts. Now that's going to be pulling hearts for U.S. people who are on that hospital ship. Usually military people are going to be on that hospital ship. There's 12 operating theaters on the Comfort, for instance. So, and they're building 9 more. So this is expanding this piece of business. So same thing. Flashbang moment allows you to spend a whole bunch of money in a lot of different places. And that's, I'm getting a call now, sorry about that. And the same idea here is create some kind of flashbang moment, and then you can do all this spending and everybody's confused. Nobody will look into it. So, and then you have your long-term guys. You have the long-term virus studies. I'm going to say right now that the Rice study that for Bill Clinton probably had several different viruses in it. And they're studying different areas. And wherever you're going to see UNICEF places, there are going to be people that are going to be collecting information about the viruses and the long-term effect of the viruses, and then the vaccines as well. So USAID and UNICEF is going to be where that happens. Mercy Corps and World Vision are going to be the other two that are going to be the information collectors. They're going to come in here every once in a while and see how things are going from the different UNICEF. So again, the strength I have is I'm not guessing. So the 650,000 emails are out there. I'm not going to call Pueblo because I know it's a diversion. They don't want me to. I know it's Siles. Okay, I'm not guessing. Okay, publish the emails. Publish the metadata just so this disinformation is put to rest. A lot of, a commission will come out of it. You can do the wrist slapping, but at least the public will have faith again in CNN, FBI, the Senate, the Congress, etc. But if you don't publish, you've lost all credibility and you're fake news. That's really when you start doing this, the 19 Gmail accounts, and I realize the Bush administration did this too. This has been going on since 1974, since the Phoenix program in Vietnam. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. That's the only thing that's happening here. The problem is Israel, Russia, and China. China and Russia have the info as well as 2 other nations. So this isn't going to fly. McCabe, it's getting worse. Oh, by the way, somebody said there's another $1 million that they got. So it's 1.66 million that the McCabe's got for her state Senate campaign, where they did one barbecue. Okay, that's it for this morning. We'll see if we go to Hollywood or if we end up dead in the parking lot like Seth Rich.